This is episode 246 of the Focused Mindset podcast. And today we're going to talk about taking action. Taking action on what we need to do seems so simple. Why is it sometimes so hard? We're going to talk specifically about taking deliberate and disciplined action in this episode. Let's get started. Let's have some great conversations using the solution-focused approach. I'm Cher. And as a school counselor, I've learned a lot about how to lead with hope. I've talked about it on the TEDx stage. It's what we discuss right here. And I want to thank you for following this show. You know you can head over to thefocusedmindset.com to get more. Right now, let's level up our mindset so we can be solution focused. Let's go. All right, here we are. We're going to talk about taking action. I probably want to talk about this subject because of the many, many times in my life where I've been sitting around doing nothing and had to kick myself in the behind and say, get moving, woman. And since I have to keep reminding myself to take action, I know that you're sometimes in the very same situation. So we're going to talk about this. I have some stories, so I want you to bear with me because it will all circle back to make a connection to this same very subject of taking action and taking it in the right kind of way. You know, I first want to just thank my listeners. I have some very faithful listeners. I'm blessed to have this podcast grow all over the world, every single episode that I put out. And I want to have a shout out to listeners, particularly to Azadeh and to Camille. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm glad you're with me. I'm glad you're a part of this podcast and that we can learn and grow together. I appreciate you. Those two people listen together usually because they're a part of a family. One reason they pop in my mind is because I had the opportunity to go visit my family out in Florida recently. Many of you guys know I went out to Florida and I was there on a very special trip. It was a trip that I got asked to MC, to basically lead with two other wonderful women, a TEDx event in Ocala, Florida. I was able to stand on the very stage that I did my TEDx talk in 2023, and they asked me to come back to MC. And how cool was it to be able to introduce each and every one of the honored speakers and to get to know them and to be backstage. And I was a coach to one of those speakers that's going to be a guest on our podcast in a few weeks when I do my Women of Influence series. And so my trip to Florida didn't stop there, though. I had a moment where I had a decision to make. Was I going to try to rush on back home, or was I going to take the trip to visit my mom, who's also in Florida? Now, I will admit to you that I came kind of close to choosing not to go visit her. And it was because it's 3.5-hour drive to get to Vero Beach from Ocala. There was a part of me that wanted to say, oh, but wouldn't it just be easier to hop on over to the airport? And I just couldn't do it. I knew that taking that extra step to go out and visit my mom would be worth it, and also my grandmother. So I did just that. And right after the event was over, I was still kind of excited from that event. I didn't even change my clothes from the outfit that I wore on stage, and I started driving to Vero Beach. And the rain began to pour down. And I remember I called my husband and said, oh my gosh, there's so much rain. Florida rain, you people, man, when it rains, buckets are coming down. And I trudged along until I got to my mom's apartment that I had never seen before. You see, my mom is from California here. She recently moved to Florida a few years back because in her heart, she had a strong conviction to take care of her mom. And my grandmother is now in a retirement community in Florida that's close to a couple of her other daughters. My mom had always thought, it was always her best hope, I guess you could say, that she wanted to take care of her mother when she got old. And then she had the opportunity. What we thought might just be a little while has turned into a wonderful last couple of years. And so I had the opportunity to go visit her. And when I pulled up and I saw her apartment and I was speaking with her, I knew this is exactly where I needed to be. We stayed up late, laughing and talking and joking and eating. And at one point, my mom said, every day that I take care of my mom, even if she doesn't remember anything, it never seems like a chore. It always seems easy. And that's because it's the right thing for me to do. And I thought, what a wonderful lesson for us. If we have a strong conviction of something that we need to do, um, we're never going to regret doing that thing, but we could very much regret if we don't. And that's a lesson on taking action, because so many times we talk ourselves out of the things that we need to do. And I'm sure that my mom could have said, but I have my home here. She's doing fine over there. I have my grandkids here. She took action. And I have to tell you that it was really that moment that I had with her when I let go of all of my thoughts that I've been harboring in my mind of saying, why isn't she just here watching her grandkids and being with us? How selfish of me to have those thoughts. But I didn't look at it as selfish at the time until I was sitting there in her apartment and saying, she doesn't look at this as anything but a joy, because it's her hope. It's what she wants to do. And she's doing exactly what she's convicted to do in her heart. And therefore, it doesn't even seem like work to her. Where other would people would be like, how do you do that? How do you take care of your mother that may or may not even remember who you are when you come in? And it's her joy. And then the next day we did go visit my grandmother, and it was precious to see my mom with her mom and the time that they were spending together. We also got to go to church, and then I circled back and got on the plane, and that's a whole nother story. I I will pause and tell you that I was choosing to travel right at that whole time with the government shutdown, and everything that was happening made the plane, the airports crazy. And I was hopeful that it wouldn't affect me. I was also wrong that it wouldn't affect me. A trip that should have taken, I don't know, 5 hours, I guess. I don't know what, maybe at the most 6. I had a layover. It took well over 24 hours to finally get home. Yes, I spent the night in an airport. This is something that I never wanted. It was never on my bucket list. One day I just want to spend the night in an airport. No. But now I can check that off my list of things that I have done. And I chose to do it with the best attitude I could, guys. I really, really did. I went in and I was like, well, nothing I can really do about it. I can be grumpy like some of these folks, or I can just roll with it. And there were some good things that happened in that airport. I'm going to save that for another episode. People I met, things that happened that would have never happened if I didn't choose to go into that whole experience saying, I'm intentionally going to choose the best attitude that I can walking through this. And eventually, I ended up on an airplane to another airport, that not to the airport that I was going to go to, but out to Palm Springs, where I ended up driving back home from there. My husband actually was out there, and then we drove back home. Man, I'd never been so happy to get back home. And I could still say that the whole trip was worth it. It was an adventure. All right. We'll just say that. Um, but anyway, so as I was in the airport and I was reflecting upon my time with my grandma, I started thinking about all the different ways that she's impacted my life through the years. She was a very faithful person. And one thing that she was faithful about doing is teaching kids about the Lord. That was just something that she was so passionate about. And she did vacation Bible school. She taught Sunday school. She ended up being even a children's pastor. And I was one of the people that sat and listened to her, and how much of her influence may be behind what I chose for my life. I was pondering that, because what I chose to do first before I became a school counselor is be a teacher. And my first experience with teaching was in Head Start, which is preschool. And even before that, I was an aide, and the place that I was an aide was an amazing preschool at Riverside Community College Child Development Center. And it's where I fell in love with teaching, being around kids. And that led to quite a few years of teaching. And then I taught college, and then I decided to go ahead and get my master's and become a counselor. My grandma had a lot to do with that. And I remembered how she taught her lessons. And I remembered at one point in her lesson, she would always bring out a suitcase. And we all know what was in that suitcase. And she would peek in and she'd say, "Mortimer, are you ready to come visit the kids?" And we would be so excited. And she would take out her puppet. And she had a puppet named Mortimer that someone had made for her. And it was, to me, in my childhood mind, it was just such a wonderful little boy puppet. And my grandma had practiced forever and ever to be able to speak without moving her lips as much as possible. And she would allow this puppet to help her with her life lesson that she wanted to share with us, whatever that might be. And it was wonderful. You could hear a pin drop. The kids loved it, no matter what the age, when they were able to see Mortimer. And I'm sitting there in the airport and I'm thinking, oh, that's why I have a puppet. I also have a puppet that I named, and I named him Mr. Wendell. And I thought, oh, I should bring out my puppet again, because there was a time when I was a Head Start teacher that I took it out every single day. Every single day I took out my puppet, and I thought, oh my gosh, I did that exactly the way that my grandma did. I would teach a lesson, and then I would bring out my Mr. Wendell puppet and say, "Are you ready to come and visit the kids?" And they would get so excited, and I'd take out my puppet, and then we would talk and laugh and joke, and I would pretend like the puppet isn't getting the lesson, and then he would end up getting it. And it was just a very, very important part of every single one of my lessons. And I thought, oh my gosh, I really was taking the lead of my grandma when I did that. And it reminded me how precious that she was in my life. And I needed to take that moment of being glad of the action that she took and how it affected me, really. And the things that we do in our life affect the people that we're around. The way that we choose to teach, how we choose to do it, the words we choose to use, they all come together to be able to make a difference. So I I was reminded of that, not only because I was reflecting upon the past, but then I thought it is important, the things that I take action on and how I take action, because it's going to make a difference to the people that are around me. And I don't know how it's going to make a difference in the generations to come, but I want to take action on my convictions, and I want to be able to do that well. There might be something that popped in your mind right now as we're listening that you know you need to take action on. You haven't been. You maybe have slightly talked yourself out of it. It's okay. We do it. We all do it. And now it's time for you to be deliberate. It's time for you to now, even now, say, you know what, this is my year to take action on this new endeavor, maybe this way of speaking, maybe this way of communicating, this new thing you want to introduce in your family, in your life, in your work, in your job, in the people that you lead. You and only you can identify what just popped in your mind. And whatever it was, I'd like you to take action on it. What kind of action, though? Please, please, for goodness sake, don't just start running 100 miles an hour forward without any type of plan or deliberate action. I want you to choose to be deliberate and be disciplined with that action. What do you hope to achieve from what you need to do? What is the intention that you have? Remember that there's a very big difference with having an agenda and having an intention. Agenda is something that you try and control every single aspect of the things around you. And that is just going to end up probably falling apart in one way or another. And then you're feel let down. And then you're like, why even try? Rather than moving forward with an agenda, I'd like you to take action with intention, because intention is what you can control. Because you could say, I intend to be to be mindful. I intend to be kind. I intend to be listening in a new type of way. I intend to use different types of words than I have in the past, or I intend to react to another person's behavior differently. These are intentions. An agenda is this will happen and they will do this and then this will happen and then that. We don't really need an agenda when we're acting with intention. That's what I believe is the most authentic way for us to move forward with the things that we know that we want to do. It doesn't mean we don't have strong conviction and that we don't do it in a very deliberate way, but it means that we're moving with that vibe, right? So, so I brought out my puppet again in last week, a couple weeks back actually. And you could see a picture of me with my puppet, Mr. Wendell, if you hop over to my Instagram. I have a picture of it that my intern took. She snapped a couple of cute pictures. I'm really, really glad that she did. That is so sweet of her because now I have that cherished memory. I put it up on my Instagram, Cher, Cher, the focused mindset. Hop on over if you haven't already. And you can see my cute puppet. I just love him with his like light whitish brown fur and his hat and his glasses. It's a little monster. And he's not a real person. He's like a Muppet type guy. And he was my friend through all of those early years of teaching. And I wouldn't have brought him out except for that one of the kindergarten teachers remembered that couple of years back when I came in to do classroom presentations and she said, "Hey, are you going to bring out the puppet?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness. I have to get that puppet out." So I knew exactly where it was in my office. I brought him out. I told my intern, "I'm going to do this puppet. And I don't know how it's going to go. I haven't really used it for a long time." And it was a hit. Of course, I do move my lips. I don't try and not move my lips. I do change my voice a little bit, and it felt very comfortable as I got rolling with this puppet. And it's been so many years of counseling that I was like, "Oh no, I don't use that puppet anymore." Then who knows? Maybe Mr. Wendell will make more appearances moving forward. It was super rewarding because I was able to kind of also have a full circle moment to think about my grandma and just be rewarded in a certain different type of internal way with having that there. Now, I remember as a Head Start teacher, I remember the day that I got that puppet, and I was newlywed, and my husband and I, it was one of our first trips to Las Vegas, and we walked through, I believe it was Excalibur or something, and there's this vendor that has all of these puppets out, and they all looked very similar to that little monster that you see on my Instagram, and it was like I just instantly stopped and instantly turned and was like, "Oh my gosh, I need one of those puppets for my classroom." And I just immediately fell in love with them. Every single one of them had different fur and different hats. And I just saw the one that was like, "Oh, that's my Mr. Wendell." And sure enough, it's so many years later and he's still my little buddy apparently. So there you have it. That's my story about that. Now, my intern, she is a very special person. I almost said no to that too. Another thing I took action on that I am thankful for this last year. I got asked, "Do you want to intern?" And it was almost already time for me to turn in my ramp application. So I was like, I don't know if I really need someone to help me with ramp. Should I say yes? Thank goodness I did, because she is a woman of action. She's actually modeled that for me because she is not a counselor yet. She's training to be, and she has jumped in 2 feet, even in the times when she's the most nervous. She's willing to tell me, "I'm nervous about this." She'll tell me before a big day that we've set up, "Oh, I'm nervous," but it doesn't stop her from taking action. I've had interns that they do stop it from them from taking action. They make excuses, they ask me to do it, or they shy away from some of the things they're supposed to be doing or do it halfway. No, she has modeled taking action 100%. And I have absolutely no question in my mind that she's going to be an amazing counselor because of it. And I can only hope that I've been a small part in her journey of learning, and that I hope that she'll take solution focused practices with her because we only have a few more weeks together. But there has been times where she's scared, just like you and I are scared of the steps we need to take. And she has chosen to say, "Yes, I will step forward." And then I'm also inspired through her to say yes and take steps forward, and the things that maybe I'm not scared about, I'm just being lazy about. Um, so we had a conversation right after that, and somehow it came up that we started talking about like where I originally started working with the Head Start and preschool, and we realized we had another amazing thing in common, and that was that we both got trained at with a school that I just mentioned, the Riverside Community College Child Development Center. Even though it was more than a decade apart, I worked at that Child Development Center and originally got trained there, and so did she. And immediately we understood the things that that school stands for and the way that they teach and the way that they train. And the way that they teach is so special and unique. They decided that their value is that they don't use the word no. And they do not phrase things saying the things that the kids should not be doing. Instead, they phrase their phrases in what the kids should be doing. And what does that sound like? A solution focused approach, right? So, way back with that training that I had, and also my intern Magali had, we originally, she goes, "Do you remember walking feet? Do you remember how they're so deliberate about not saying the word no?" And I said, "Absolutely." But then we both said, "Man, we're thankful for that. We're so thankful that they stood deliberately and they were disciplined in teaching the people that go to that school that we talk differently to kids." Many people probably have come up against them and been like, "Well, no is a very natural word to say. Why are you standing so firm on this? And is it really that big of a deal if you sometimes phrase things by telling them what not to do?" In their world, it absolutely is. This is a value that they stand on, and it's a value that they take seriously. And because of that, my world was changed. The way I communicate with kids was changed. It doesn't mean that I always refrain from saying no, but it means that I learned a brand new habit of a different type of way that you can talk to kids. And I saw the value in it. I saw that it made a difference. This preschool that many people would just pass by off the side of the road away from the college was the most special and wonderful preschool ever because of that value that they stand on. They teach and train the people that are around them to speak differently to kids. It wasn't one of the questions when in the interview process of saying, "Hey, have you already broken the habit of always saying no to kids?" No. They just believed in their heart that that was a value that they had and that the people that came there have the ability to learn that. And we did learn that, and they were bold enough to come and talk to me. I remember I was a little embarrassed, like, when they had to, when a teacher would come up to me and I would say, "Don't run." And they came up and said, "Okay, well, what we want to say instead is walking feet." And it didn't take long before I began to train myself to have a brand new habit. And I could do it. It was a teachable thing. Much like I say that the solution focused approach or asking and listening differently to the people around you is something you can learn. I know that that's possible because it's happened to me. Now, if their value of teaching people how to speak to kids differently and standing firm on it, that's something that's so interwoven within their community that here Magali, my intern, is there 10 years later, and her and I immediately remembered if we had the exact same experience. They're able, they've duplicated it in such a way that I can't imagine when you think about it, how many generations of teachers that they have been able to change the way that they are. There's amazing teachers and counselors, educators, college professors that know there's a different way to communicate that's actually more effective. Why? Because they were forced to learn it at that preschool. Look, they were deliberate in their action. They were disciplined in making sure that every single person followed through and did it. You did not need to tell the kids, "Don't go up the slide." You could say, "The slide is for going down." And you could train yourself to say that every single time. That was one reason why the solution focused approach immediately was something I was drawn to. It was because I already knew when you speak differently to people, you have different results. When you listen differently, you have different results. When you choose language deliberately rather than just say it however you want to say it, you're leveling yourself up, but you're also affecting the people around you differently. Look, I did this just recently. I had a group, some kindergartners, and they want to run ahead of me. And my first thought was, don't run. But I said, walking feet. Remember, then sure enough, they slow down their little feet and they're walking, because there is something that happens in our mind when we're told what we need to do rather than what not to do. It's easier to follow that. What do you need to do? What is it? Is it taking a mindful breath? Is it slowing your body down? Is it thinking before you talk? Is it acting in exactly the way that you intend on acting rather than popping off and saying the first thing that pops into your mind? These things that we choose to do has a ripple effect, and it's worth it to do. We just think, oh, it's not. Is it really worth it? Yes. Yes, it is. And you don't know now what you're affecting. People are going to look back and say, oh, I appreciate the way that my mother communicated. If you look at the example of me, or my grandmother communicated with me, and so the things that you do now, the action that you take, it matters, and there's value in standing firm in your convictions and what you choose. I hope that you can see the value in doing exactly what I've already learned. It's something that we need to keep putting effort in. And it starts with the exact thing that I learned back when I taught preschool, of word things with telling people what they can do rather than what they should not do. If you want someone to relax their body, for example, because they just seem so tense, telling them to calm down is going to maybe even frustrate them more than ever. But if you say, soften your hand, take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, this calm down in a different type of way, right? You're saying calm down, but you're saying it in telling them what they need to do. And then you get the result of them actually calming down, but you told them in a new way. Look, this works whether you're a boss talking to your employees, whether you're a counselor speaking to your clients, whether you're a teacher speaking to your students, whether you're a parent speaking to your kids, however and in whatever arena that you have influence, you can have an influence by telling them, rather than saying no, telling them what they need to be doing. No, stop that. Rather than saying no, like they told us, flat out, we don't use the word no. You can train yourself to, rather than that, say what people should be doing. Because part of being solution focused is that you choose to listen and be in somebody's worldview. So when you do offer some help, it is personalized, where you understand them and you feel as though you have a little more, not only compassion, but empathy, because you have chosen to deliberately listen carefully to the words that they're saying and how they're saying it, so you can truly align with them to be able to make the biggest amount of impact. I work on this all the time as a counselor. I really feel as though it's my first step to really figure out where this person is, because then I can be the most helpful, right? So it just goes back to that whole thing of, do I have an agenda of I got to get this done, or am I working with intention? And I believe that that can trickle into every single part of our life. I was a part of a conversation recently that was debating, is the solution focused approach complex? And they said, well, it's not complex, but it is hard. Why is it hard? Because we're doing things that take work. It takes work to take action and think differently about the way that you're going to communicate, and then listen differently to the things that people are saying, and then respond differently with mentioning the things that are going better or could be, or what you hear that's gone better, or basically what they could be doing rather than what they shouldn't be doing. These are all choices that take work and effort. And you will quickly abandon that work and effort and find an excuse unless you decide it's important to me. It's a value I'm going to stand on, just like with the preschool. And I am going to take action on it with deliberate discipline. And then you're going to look back and you're not going to regret that. Just as much as I knew that I'm never going to actually regret going out to visit my mom, 3.5 hour drive, but I very well may regret not visiting my mom, right? Taking action for the right reasons, what we know is the thing that we need to be doing in our heart. We will never regret. As a matter of fact, we will know that we're right in line with what we need to be doing, which really gives us peace. So I want us to practice taking action. I mean, there's going to be moments coming up in the next few weeks where we're going to reflect on the year and reflect on what we want to do next year. And what do I want to take action on? What are my quote unquote New Year's resolutions, right? And I feel like we need to look at it through a lens of what our intention is, and then really looking at action as something that is our joy, that is something that's easy on us, because if we're moving with intention, with a value that we have in our heart, then it's not going to feel like so much work. Is it going to be hard? Yes. It's also going to be worth it. So, what are you going to take action on? What are you going to do in the next week that you've maybe been putting off? Might be as simple as pouring out a drawer and reorganizing it. Let's just start there, or something like that. But whatever it is, you got this. I believe in you. I know that you can, and I know that I can, and we are in this together, because it's part of being our best self, is saying, yes, there is something that I need to take action on. And yes, I will do it. And yes, I will do it with conviction, discipline, and deliberate. All right. So I feel pretty excited. I mean, if you're not excited, I'll tell you what, I am. And I'm ready to get out there and take some action. And so thank you for listening. You can take action right now to follow this show, share this show with somebody that you also think needs to learn some new ways to level up their communication and their focus. And that's what the focused mindset is all about. By choosing what we focus on with purpose, deliberately, amazing things can take place in our life. And we can discover what our actual hope is. And we can not be so worried about our agenda and what all the things that are going to go wrong, and actually move with intention. And then actually find some joy in even the things that do go wrong, and the quirky, weird things that happen. We can be a lot lighter about that when we know that we've taken action for the right reasons. And so yeah, I'm going to have some great things coming up in January. Like I said, the Woman of Influence series, you're going to hear some interviews that are going to blow your mind. I know you're going to love it. And so follow the show, share the show, do these things, because, that's the way that podcasts exist. We aren't really one of those things that have an algorithm that pushes us out, as so much so as we're one that kind of word of mouth, and people come across it and then they listen. So, all right, time for us to get going. So until next time, live solution focused. Bye.